we're going, and just talk for a minute while I get the link out there.
All right. Well, if anyone has managed to sneak in early, hello. It's me again, Greg, here to talk about Worm with William, already canceled. We got a couple of banging chapters here this week.
Here we go. Sorry, took me longer than usual to
No
operate the
trouble.
controls. 2
Pressing
plus 4
buttons
times
always
5
hard.
is here already. It's good to see.
Hey.
Um, all right.
Oh man,
So,
I
I'll
hadn't seen the art.
start.
It's already excellent.
Yep, starting the speed draw. I think the like difference in the high quality and low quality of like the vid picture versus the real picture is like more stark in this one than usual, and the real
Mm-hmm.
picture is like really good. Um
It's
oh,
very
I should
cathartic.
at everyone.
This is one of those moments that if you've read the story before, you know it's coming and you're like, yes. Yes, she deserves it. Get her, Taylor.
Get her. I mean, like, it's followed by some surrounding injustice, but
Sure, but you get this one shiny moment where you're like, yeah, do that more, Taylor. Like a lot more.
yes, more bugs, please. Um, all right. So yeah, you get to see all the glory of punched Emma slowly being drawn in, and she's shocked the whole time. Um, anyway, so as like the audience participation reminder, we never ended up with a question last week, so um, at this point, if you've got any thoughts on the 2 chapters, like probably the school meeting more in particular, that you think are worth sharing, feel free to put them in the audience participation or to just type them out later once we get to that point.
Sure.
I think we're gonna get into the themes though.
Mm-hmm.
Do you wanna start us off?
Yeah, of course, the first theme here is bullying. It looms large these chapters because these 2 chapters focus on the interaction between Taylor and the bullies and everything that surrounds them.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. They hey Bill, they like finally have her revealing to Danny, and they finally have like a confrontation with the school personnel, and they like finally have this out in the open, and she finally takes a strike back at them. It's like there's so many steps
Yeah,
all in two
and,
chapters.
and all it took was a horrifying pain bomb and head injury.
Oh man, Taylor should have been sustaining head injuries this whole time.
It would have done so much good for her relationships with her father. True.
Exactly, exactly. Um, and then the next theme we wanted to really pull out was the sort of societal dysfunction. Like nothing really works like from the mall. The fact that all the people who work at the mall are like paycheck to paycheck already before the curfew and stuff, so they have to try and do these sales as like a desperate bid to stay open because that's the only way to like keep the wages flowing to these people, so they like put themselves in danger of a bombing campaign because they're so like
Put themselves and all
financially
the
on the edge,
customers.
and all the
Yeah.
customers, yeah, like creating a target. um it's so that there's that, and then you see like um the mishandling of the Taylor scenario, where like because she's been failed for so long by the school, then oh, I should switch the art. Because she's been failed by the school for so long, and the bullying situation has gotten so out of hand, she like lashes out in this way. And then she, despite being like, I mean, if you know the context and you are on Emma's side, you're like a psycho. Um,
Yeah. I'll have some words for the school staff when we get to the characters section. We'll rake them
yeah,
over the coals.
Yeah, and then there's the obvious whole school meeting is the second chapter that is representative of the like failure of the system. And the fact that
Hmm.
all of these portions of the story feel like they could just be in a regular school. Like, I don't know. Pretty crazy.
Yep.
So I think it's time to go to 5.3. Do you want to start it off or do
Yeah.
you want me to? I was thinking we'd go kind of paragraph by paragraph, even though they're bulky.
Sure. I can start. So 5.3 starts with a jump cut forward. Taylor's due to go back to school tomorrow, and Danny is trying to diffuse some of her stress by taking her out shopping.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
it's kind of works at
yeah,
first.
I mean, Taylor seems pretty happy in this moment, right? She's actually fairly upbeat and getting along well with her dad. It's a good moment.
Yeah. And like Vale says, gotta sell those shoes.
So I just take the rest of the chapter, or are we gonna?
No, no. I was thinking you would, or do you want me to mostly lead? Because I was thinking like we could just hop back and forth, like paragraph to paragraph.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. So then the Taylor opens with Taylor and Danny hearing an announcement about how the mall is closing early due to the limited number of time left before the citywide curfew goes into effect. People better be careful wandering around at night, or else they might get bombed. You see.
Yeah, yeah. And Taylor mentally compares the people who were talking and moving to a video that paused for the length of the announcement, then started again. Um, which I mean, I can really easily imagine. It kind of it's good imagery. She asks Danny if they should leave to beat the last minute rush, and he agrees. Taylor's been stressed about going back to the school the next day and thinks that this is probably why Danny had taken her shopping in the first place. And Vale
Yeah.
says the school treats Taylor as though she should just take the abuse and not interfere with their lives by making them see it. It's just vile.
Yeah, I heard an interview with Jerry Kraft. He wrote a semi-autobiographical visual novel about his experiences attending a white school as a kid of color. And one of the quotes that stood out to me from that interview was, "It's okay what happened to me, but it's not okay to talk about it." And that's really stuck with me for a long time. And I think that Taylor's experience also mirrors that in a lot of ways.
Mm, yeah.
But that I actually wrote like a paragraph like about that in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
outline
yeah.
notes
We
and then took it out because it was such an aside. I might put it in the Discord later though.
okay, yeah. Um, that would be cool. Um, let's see here. So I think we should address the chat real quick again. 2 plus 4 times 5 says about the store stays in business by doing big sale to attract customers despite the risk of physical danger thing. I've recently been watching a clip, a lot of Germa 985 stream clips, and here's a quote. Imagine if there was a supermarket where everything was 80% off, but every hour a random customer gets eaten by a giant man. Would you still shop there? Um, yeah, it's kind of like that. Uh,
And look, we have to feed people to the giant man. That's how we have such good sales.
yeah, that's the only way to get the deals.
Yeah.
All right.
To answer that question, I would not shop there. But
But they do. They
the
go for it.
problem is that the problem is that the system, yeah, forces people into such desperate situations that
It's kind of like
that
the
sort of
Black Friday
decision.
thing, where it's like hellish to do Black Friday, and Black Friday is really only giving you like what the prices should be, rather than the super marked up like stuff with the like inflated profit margins and stuff. Um, and so they're like scrabbling and fighting for their lives, and people are crushing each other because they have been driven to this point. Uh, and they're doing all that to get goods at regular prices. It's bonkers.
That makes a good point. If it's only once per hour, you can let the more desperate people go in and let one of them get eaten and then enter just after. So you have a full hour to shop before potentially being eaten.
Yeah,
If you
Bakuda
want
made it. Bakuda made every day into Black Friday. Yeah,
Oh wow, she really did. She's doing so much for the shops of the area.
exactly. I think
It's a fire sale.
it's a fire sale. I think you're
Anyways,
here.
Taylor gets some new running shoes, but aside from that, she's getting a bunch of school supplies. Taylor has to replace so much school stuff. Having both is expensive. She should really consider cutting them from her budget.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, I had a little quote here about how nice it was between Danny and Taylor. All in all, the trip to the mall was a nice gesture, and it somehow meant more to me than Lisa treating me to a few $100s worth of clothes. Maybe because it was stuff for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Vale says free crystalline arm at 2.
Well, yeah, that's super sweet. I mean, you walk into the courtroom and you've got a big crystal arm. No one's gonna mess with you.
Who's gonna argue?
Yeah.
Um,
You just rest that right on the table and be like, yeah.
it's
yeah,
a really good gavel
so.
until it cracks. But anyway, when they head for the exit and Taylor sees the crowd, she's annoyed at how many people are there. Not so much at the half that are actually trying to exit, but at the half of the crowd who seem to just be there to stare at the security and the on-duty capes. There's a lot of security, and they're pretty damn serious about it too. And then here is another excerpt. Both inside and outside the glass doors of the mall's entrance, there were soldiers. Their guns were holstered, but they looked pretty intimidating anyways. In the midst of the soldiers were 2 capes, Battery and Shadowstalker.
Yeah. They called them the National Guard, huh?
Yeah, well, they just say military. I think that possibly Wildbow, didn't really look it up because he's not, he might not have been, super familiar with the fact, the way that works, that it would be the National Guard first, and then, the actual army, if somehow the National Guard got overwhelmed.
Yeah, we don't deploy the actual, military inside the United States except in cases of extreme emergency. To be fair, though...
This is an extreme emergency.
Maybe. But it's quite possible that those rules have been laxed somewhat in Earth just because of the continuous extreme circumstances that keep occurring.
Vale thinks the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty likely.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Taylor thinks about how there are heroes stationed around the city wherever there are large groups of people, especially around the ABB territory. Protectorates, wards, and even volunteer independent heroes, as well as the police and military. Taylor assumes the wards are considered too young to handle somewhere alone and have to act as sidekicks to actual protectorate capes. One thing we haven't really mentioned yet, but the wards really do get into some incredibly dangerous situations. The escalation in this story affects them right along with our main characters.
Yeah. And then 2 plus 4 times 5 said there are probably lots of extreme emergencies in the parahumans world, which, yeah. And then Vale says National Guard was eaten during the Wichita riots of 92, Earth bet.
Yeah, probably.
The entire nation's National Guard from all their posts.
The Earth opened up and blah.
Yep. It was very specific who it grabbed.
Yeah, the rats were in Wichita, but the National Guard everywhere got affected.
Well, I'm thinking there could be a parahuman power that's because the parahuman powers get so specific, it'd be like everyone in your organization gets eaten. It's just, I don't know. Some of them are so bonkers with the restrictions.
Oh no, all of us!
Yeah. Weirdest Master Stranger Eater power ever. Yeah, Eater's the new classification after this episode. Vale just, it started with 2 plus 4 times 5, bringing up that giant man, the Vor scenario.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, indeed. Your note here, Bakuda has been busy. And then the quote, Bakuto was living up to what she'd been saying about maximizing fear and panic by combining unpredictability with grim certainty. Every day, there were reports of anywhere from 1 to 5 bombs going off. Taylor thinks about how the bombs must be places that are advantageous to the ABB in some way, but she's not really sure how, and she thinks sometimes they're just like, kind of a little random. But she also thinks about an article she read that had some pretty accurate info, if obvious, about the situation, saying that they thought the ABB, as they got backed into a corner, things would escalate and get worse. Um, I agree. But because any populated areas are a potential target, it's sort of public justification enough for the authorities to have an armed presence across the city. So they have
I
like a
mean,
real crackdown.
yeah, to be fair, Bakuda is a true menace, and she's been demonstrated to have very little regard for human life.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where like I'm bringing up this point because the other side of it's very obvious. Like it is obviously necessary to take extreme action against Bakuda. I mean, I'd want to call in one of the like really big capes, but they don't really. Like they don't bring
Yeah, I
any of the
mean,
top tier people in.
it seems like a big danger, but I think it's one of those things where Bakuda is pretty dangerous in the context of the city, but on the global scale or even the national scale, she's, second page news.
Yeah. I'd want some heavy hitters, like at least someone of like dispatch caliber. Um I mean, he'd be great at like getting a tinker in to an area in time to like defuse a bomb. Or at least setting up a time field that stops a bomb from going off.
I guess the other downside, though, is that Bakuda has shown the ability to have bombs with a very wide variety of effects, lots of exotic stuff.
Yeah.
So even your tough capes are not necessarily safe from her bombing campaigns. Anyone you put in the city has the potential to just get taken out. And if there's some big figure, that just paints a target on their back. So maybe they're
Yeah.
just being like, a few civilians, whatever, it's better than losing, I don't know, Rhyme.
Yeah, okay. I get what you're saying. Like that's fair enough. It does suck though.
Oh, it sucks a lot. It sucks so much. If you live in Brockton Bay, this is intolerable. This is awful.
Yeah. There's been a bit of chatter here. Vale says, "Oh, the giant man eats 1 per hour scenario. Do employees get immunity to eaten and possibly also an added discount? Best job ever." No, the employees just are like on shift longer, so they're more likely to eventually get eaten. Um, 2 plus 4 times 5 says the employees all get a 5 minute break every hour, during which they hide in the employee only bunkers. Also, they get an extra 5% discount on top of the 80%.
I like to think that the employee-only bunkers don't eliminate the chance they're eaten, just reduces it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, occasionally a bunker gets busted and all those employees, yum, yum, yum.
Yum.
Anyways, the upside of all of this ongoing superpowered bombing campaign is that the mall has sweet sales. Oh, yeah. Another good touch, Taylor thinks about the employees who were barely getting by on a day to day basis before the bombing campaign started. Brockton Bay isn't an actual comic book city like Gotham or Metropolis. This is a city that actually has a past. It has a lot of good things, has a lot of bad things. And the kind of people who work service jobs and work in shops aren't going to be able to sustain themselves when the economy shuts down. For them, the risk to keep working is well worth it if they have no fallback. They will risk being eaten by the giant man.
They risk it every day. Um, and when they arrived at the mall checkpoint, when they arrived at the mall, the checkpoint had been like airport security, bags checked, and showing identification at the entrance. Manpower from New Wave had been there. That's Amy and Victoria's uncle, Uncle Neil Pelham. Uh,
Yeah, we don't get to hear very much about him in this chapter, just that he was there.
yeah, he generally like they kind of just they work. I think they're basically like hero mercenary in scenarios like this. I think I'm not sure what their pay
Maybe
structure is, but like some maybe it's just merchandising. Maybe it's totally volunteer heroing and they're just trying to sell merch and do
I think
like
it's a
brand deals.
combination of merchandising and donations. Would be my guess.
Oh yeah.
However, as far as this goes, I imagine that they coordinate with the PRT for big events like this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how they actually like get money. Cuz
Yeah.
there are ways, but
I
like they
I think
specifically are poor and like barely make it.
sure. I think there's a reason why there are so few independent hero teams. Is that it's a tough gig. There's not
Yeah.
a whole lot of money in it unless you're very high profile, and you are not very high profile. Like, there's not a big market for being able to sustain many teams that aren't government backed.
Right. Right.
Or you
Um
could just be in it not for the money. You know, if you have a Batman on your team who's independently wealthy, that would help.
well, if you
But
have a Batman on your team, but these are regulars.
yeah, these are just some guys, you know.
Like they literally have one person on the whole team who has a job and she's supporting 8 people.
Hmm.
She may have a good job, but it's still 8 people.
Yeah,
Um let's see here. Yeah, so um yeah, I like how the side characters are like casually used in ways that make total sense like this though, where they're like of course there would be someone from New Wave like as part of the citywide effort. Like there could be some rando hero, but instead he reestablishes the character like here. Uh remembering his name for later kind of thing. Now the crowd is full on gawking at the two lady heroes. One of them is a minor, who both have controversy around them. Taylor is annoyed by the slowness of the lines, but likes getting to see these two operate when they're not attacking her.
sure. Yeah, and Taylor drops some information of a Battery. Battery was a member of the Protectorate. When I'd been studying junior high, she'd been the head of the wards for a brief while, and she'd soon after graduated to the Protectorate. There's a small moment I like where Taylor acknowledges that the possibility that the wards graduate to the Protectorate at different times than when they turn 18 to hide their exact ages, which is a good idea and actually correct. We get a brief description of Battery's power that we'll save for the powers knowledge and world building section.
Yeah. Oh. Vale says, "I love how 100% judgment mode Taylor is in her inner monologue." Yep, we love Judgy Taylor. That's what we're here for on this stream.
Yep.
That's why we live. The aforementioned controversy is explained here, and there's a excerpt here. Inquiries about whether her teammate Assault was her boyfriend or her brother had been met with coy deflections, leading to a small fraction of the local superhero fans to surmise he was both.
Of course.
Ah, the internet never changes. Taylor thinks about being above all the she's about how she's above all the nonsense of the tabloids, and mentions that she thinks of Battery as the kind of hero she could look up to. And another quote I pulled here: "She was nice. She worked hard, and in those inevitable situations where she found herself on TV with some asshole getting in her face about something, she handled things rather well."
Yeah. The funny thing here, of course, being that Taylor's like, I'm above this all, but also I'm aware of all this stuff happening. Oh yeah, I know the controversy.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, I don't I don't care or anything. I just have read all the mags.
Yeah, I just read all the threads on PHO. I'm not
Exactly.
like a fan of it or anything. I just
But
follow it
Bacchus.
all the time.
Yeah.
Bale says, well, there are only four possibilities, right? One, the other, neither, or both. With no info, where does one decide to land? Well, one decides to land where the shipping potential will be the highest. So there you go.
Hmm. Um.
So When Batter leans in and whispers something to Shadowstalker, she uses her power to walk through the glass. Shadowstalker does, rather. And say something to the military personnel, turning into a smoky state that makes Taylor think Shadowstalker looked like she was made of sand. Taylor doesn't think that blatant use of powers was constructive, as it only fed into the crowd watching Shadowstalker. They keep gawking instead of moving.
Oh yeah, 2 plus 4 times 5 puts what I can only assume is a showboat. I don't know what boat emoji this is supposed to be, but Shadowstalker certainly is showboating. And then another quote here. I kind of felt like I should dislike or hate her on principle, since she was Gru's self-declared nemesis. Good. Good! Give in to your hate. You can tell that Greg put
Yes.
that in, but, a perfect drop of a sheave line. Poorly timed ship emoji. Vale says one or both then makes sense. So this is very well reasoned group of local redditors. Or are they called bedditors in this world? My god, bedditors. I think they got PHO instead. They never had the scourge that is Reddit.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I'm not sure if it's a term for like people who post on their humans online.
Yeah, I'm like trying to search for it in my mind, and I mean, there's a bunch of subterms for different types of people on there, but not just generally, I don't think.
Mm.
Anyway, so Taylor knows from Lisa that the only reason Shadowstalker isn't in jail is that she joined the wards on a plea bargain. But she's been using lethal ammo, which was against her terms of agreement with the heroes. So, she's still breaking the law, breaking the law.
Oh, that Shadowstalker still being edgy.
Yeah, a total edgelord.
Taylor continues her musing on capes, thinking about how they don't seem so big to her anymore. Now that I had been involved in cape stuff, I felt like I could look past the costume in a way most didn't. They looked normal, pretty much.
Yeah. We got a few jokes here. We got Earth Bet, more like Earth Better.
Yeah, when do we get to Earth Best?
Oh man, if only we could go to Earth Bestest. Vale says PHO/R/stolen ideas from other worlds. Yeah. So Earth Asbestos. Taylor's busy spacing out, thinking about capes, and doesn't notice until they're about to bump into the barns until it happens. Really got to work on your situational awareness, Taylor. And then that was what Greg said, and I said, gotta throw a defense on my dear friend Taylor. She's still concussed. Danny opens, talking to Emma's dad, Alan Barnes, before Emma arrives on the scene. Taylor feels defeated before things even go bad, because she knows they'll go bad. And then Danny inquires if Emma is there, and Alan says he's holding their place in line while she goes to get a drink. And then
Emma joined us, a diet Sprite in one hand. She looked momentarily surprised as she saw me. Then she smiled. Hi, Taylor. You can just feel the dread rising in her. Jeez.
yeah.
Alan is going on about how they should get together for a barbecue as the weather warms up, and Danny is into the idea. Those two start to patter about work. We get some flavor about how, despite things being bad, it works out for the dock workers, because the cleanup means there's finally work for them. Danny mentions he's going to bide his time waiting for the next mayoral election in a few months to make his next play at the revival of the docks. Al even says that his firm is there to back up if they ever need it.
And this is
Plus
when
4 times 5 makes a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Who the fuck drinks Diet Sprite?
Exactly.
Yeah, only monsters.
Vale says barbecue sounds like a nice idea. Nothing bad ever happens at a barbecue.
Yeah, definitely not. Not for any characters in any book.
Well, on the scale of bad things, the barbecue isn't that bad.
Well, no, it just sets the tone.
Yeah. Um, this is when Emma really decides to join the conversation, and Danny, not knowing that she's the true bully of Taylor, my God, is the one to include her by asking if Emma is still modeling for the mall catalogs. She is, Alan smiled proudly, and doing quite well. But that's not that's not why we're here today. We were just here for the sales, Alan chuckled. Uh, my daughter wouldn't let me relax the second she heard about it. She just loves getting bombed.
I don't know. These whole chapters just put me so in mind of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so I couldn't help but just slot Emma in over Veruca Salt.
Yeah,
I want it now.
exactly.
Yes. Anyways, Danny mentions that Taylor is recovering from being in a blast from a Bakuda bomb, and she waves off Alan's concern for her, never taking her eyes off of Emma. My God, you're the third person I know who's been affected by this anarchy. One of my partners is in recovery from surgery. An explosion crystallized his arm, turning it to glass. Terrifying. Yeah, cool. Cool. Very cool.
And we're at the mall right now. um, Vale said, I'm thinking through all barbecue scenes from Wildbow, and every single one is horrifying in different ways. I now think he started to write just to give barbecue a bad name.
Yeah, Wildbow, where did barbecues hurt you? Please
uh,
tell us.
um, I like that I don't know what other barbecues there are, but it's a definite ramp up from Worm, where the barbecue it's bad, but it's not that bad, and then you get to eat at the end to the other barbecue in Ward. Then again, but there's you know what? Y'all just have to read Ward. There's an additional barbecue scene.
Oh my God.
You know,
Yeah.
because I'm assuming most people have read Arc 1 who talk about Ward, but I think a lot of people who talk about it have not actually read the whole
The
work.
Thorburns never have a barbecue in Pact, but if they did, it would be the worst thing
Oh,
imaginable.
yeah, I mean, I've only read a little, and they're, like, awful. Um, 2 plus 4 times 5 is in the middle of Arc 9 right now in Ward. Yeah, Kevin's been reading Ward, and he was at the same place as you the first time we talked about it, and now he's, like, rocketed ahead. He's nearly at the end of the book. He's just, like, can't stop reading it, which, like, I understand. Had it all been at my fingertips, but I was reading it week to week, so I couldn't go crazy like you guys. Just rocket through the book. Wish I could. Wish I could read it for the first time again. Oh, that'd be good. Oh, also
Yeah,
listening to We've Got Ward every 2 chapters, which slows my pace by a lot. Definitely.
I think after we did that for a bit for the start of Ward, our one of our last road trips, we listened to Ward and listened to We've Got Ward between. I'm not certain I actually like that format very much myself. I think it slows down how you ingest the book by enough that it sort of makes me lose my pace.
Mm.
I'd much prefer just to read basically the whole work and then go back and listen to We've Got Ward is probably what I'm going to do next.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I know for a lot of people it helps them feel the like serialized experience. Basically like what we're doing where we're listening to like 1 or 2 chapters every week. When they hear the drawn out BS about it, then they get to like draw out their experience like they were thinking about it for longer between the chapters. So I do know a lot of like people are into that, but it's clearly not everyone's bag. Oh my gobs. Vale started a Ward book club with friends and read it twice. 2 friends are reading about 1 arc a week. This book club you all do inspired me just to do it with friends. Oh, that's cool. We're only on arc 3 for the book club. Close reading it. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, and Vic is finally reading Ward like for real again, like not just totally stopped on the same place. I think on arc 5. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, um, getting back to the chapters, the tension between Taylor and Emma keeps rising and rising. The two of them stare at each other, and when Emma smiles, Taylor sees not only this moment, but the moment that Emma had greeted her with a smile after she got back to the school from the psychiatric hospital. The smile she wore when she looked down at Taylor in the first chapter, when she covered her in juice. The smile when she put all of Taylor's clothes in the toilet while she was in the school shower. The same smile she was wearing when she reminded Taylor about her mom dying.
Oh my god.
This smile!
Oh my god. Disgusting.
Yeah, gross.
And then Taylor punches her right in her extremely punchable face. That one right there.
As noted
that
by
one
the
on
art.
The screen.
Yeah.
Yep. Way to go, Taylor. The realization that she's thrown a punch only happens after she's already made contact with Emma's face. Taylor kind of hears the impact and feels the pain of the dog bite she got the day she met Rachel. Emma falls the fuck over and bumps into her dad on the way down. As the crowd makes noises of shock, Danny cries out, "Taylor!"
Yeah.
Yeah, go Taylor.
It's pretty cool. I hope people like my shitty redraw where I add the punch to Emma's face.
I didn't even notice. That's great.
Yeah. And then okay, so woo, go Taylor. Yeah, just had to reiterate 2 + 4 × 5 sentiment as you did. It takes Taylor a few seconds to figure out what happened. She might have a concussion, but she's showing her true strength, a cold rage that cannot be stopped. Emma's just as shocked at Taylor at this turn of events. I was as shocked at what I'd done as she was. Not that I felt bad. A large part of me wanted to laugh in her face. Weren't expecting that. Miscalculated how I'd react? Yeah, pretty good.
Vale says, first time Taylor has injured another person.
Well,
I mean,
well, but Rachel.
Rachel, I was also thinking of Clock Blocker, to be honest.
Definitely Clock Blocker, but that could be argued to be during a cape fight. But the Rachel one was definitely like a low to no powers fight.
Yeah, it's mostly just grappling.
Yeah, it's just grappling and writhing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Anyhow, Shadowstalker grabs Taylor and gets between her and Emma. As Taylor looks into her eyes, she can see Shadowstalker glowering at her. I want to take a moment to say I like how this is actually written out. Hand seized me with an iron grip and spun me around. Shadowstalker. The way that name is a sentence unto itself.
Yeah, I really like that. Bill says, no, the Rachel, Clock Blocker, Long Bakuda, all the others don't count, wasn't a punch to the eye. This is the first time, yep.
Yeah, if Taylor had just shouted, let me see you grit those teeth, and then sock Lung in the mouth, that'd be it right there.
Yeah. But,
oh yeah, Bakuda! She cut off Bakuda's fucking toes! Ah!
Yeah, this is the first openly civilian thing. Like all the other ones were like hidden away. This is also like the first time she's actually standing up to one of her bullies. Cause like I don't really consider another cape who's trying to murder you a bully. They're just another cape who's trying to murder you. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Enemy combatant.
Yeah. There was a boot, not toes. The toes were ancillary. Yeah, just having a boot. Anyway. So Alan is flipping out. Emma didn't even say anything. And Danny's trying to calm things down and explain about how Taylor has a concussion. And during the recovery, her mood is altered. To which I have to say,
I'm feeling less stable.
I hope that came through well on the recording.
I don't think it did. It was just silence for me, at least.
I don't think it would travel on Discord.
Okay.
Do you have the stream open too, or I wasn't
I
sure?
have it open, but I don't have the audio on because it's a bit delayed usually.
That's what I
And
figured. Well, I hope that little joke landed for somebody.
okay,
And then let's see here. But then, oh, where was I? I totally spaced. Mood is altered. Shadowstalker is
oh,
about as
okay.
helpful as you'd expect from a celebrity cop. This is not the time or place for arguments. If your daughter is this unwell, then that's your responsibility.
If your daughter is feeling less stable,
Exactly. I
okay.
only had it lined
Anyways,
up the once, so I can't repeat. Anyway.
yes, Taylor is on the verge of laughing, as she often is when committing violence. But this time, it's not only hitting Emma. It's the idea that she's considered the bad guy in the situation, which is just ridiculous to her. And I mean, this definitely feels like a theme to me a bit there. The crowd that was watching was seeing Emma as the victim, me as the bad guy. But if you stripped away the costume, if everyone knew the real story, this would be planning out so differently. Like that feels like a statement that resonates throughout the story.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I'm not sure what like word to put to it. I mean, I totally agree. I just can't sum it up yet, and I'm sure there is a word for this, but like the misconstrued situations, the fact that her intentions are so different from people's expectations, um, and like not just her, everybody.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that disconnect between the public perception and the reality of a situation.
yeah, for sure.
Anyways, Taylor managed to not laugh while thinking about how awesome punching Emma was. She uses the push from either the adrenaline or the concussion to start opening up. You want to know why I hit her? If only a question mark. Sorry, it was only a question mark, but I feel like she
Should
should have
be an
had an interrobang.
interrobang. Yeah,
Yeah, get that exclamation in there.
exactly. It seems like she should be flipping out. Um, let's see here. Oh, people heard it. Cool. Before Taylor even gets to the next sentence, Shadowstalker stops her from talking by forcibly turning her head. No, I'm stopping this right here. No arguments. No excuses as to why you just assaulted someone. We're breaking this up now. Turn around. Taylor protests, and the laughter finally slips out a little. Danny tells her to comply with the SS. Taylor
Oh,
gets yeah. Oh, Taylor gets forced around, and Shadowstalker is putting her into shitty zip tie cuffs like a total asshole. Danny tries, "Please, miss, this isn't necessary," but Taylor ends up cuffed anyway. Yeah, too bad.
yep. Shadowstalker tries to justify your action, saying it's a volatile crowd and Taylor has a problem. But we all know Shadowstalker sucks. Should go home. I'm not dangerous. Taylor rolls. Didn't look like it to me. Shadowstalker sucks. She even sort of lords the arrest over Taylor. Go home and be grateful your dad isn't having to post bail for you to sleep in your own room tonight. She's what a hero of justice. Put her up on a pedestal. As an aside, this definitely feels like it's reinforcing the theme that we have yet to put a name to. The one where things seem one way from the outside. Oh yeah, exactly. Like that's we mentioned above. That theme of the outside perception in the inside reality.
Yeah, well, that could be our temporary name for it if we can't come. Yeah, permanent even. Outside perceptions, inside reality, kind of thing.
Yes, Vale, upstanding hero,
Mm-hmm.
doing good work.
That's all she cares about. Um, Danny tries to apologize to Alan for what just happened, and Alan says, "I know, it's all right. Just maybe she should stay home from school for a bit longer." And Greg had tacked on here, "Yes, perhaps forever."
Yeah, it would be better than Winslow.
Yeah.
Anyways, Taylor feels bad about her dad being embarrassed and hates being perp walked. Emma beams at Shadowstalker. She loves the way this has all turned out for her. Danny and Taylor get past the crowd and the soldiers to their car. Then Taylor has to wait around for a few minutes for Danny to find a pair of nail clippers to uncover.
Yeah, she just stands by the passenger door. It sounds like it sucks. Vale says her greatest downside, Shadowstalker, the SS, is that she chooses to phase through doors instead of just open them.
Yeah, she takes the opportunity for herself, but doesn't open it for those who come behind.
Yeah,
That's just the sort of person she is.
It's like a metaphor. They start to drive away. I'm not mad. Okay. It's perfectly understandable. You're emotionally sensitive after getting knocked around by the explosion, and she reminds you of what's going on at school. Oh, the concentrated irony of the thing which Danny is saying! Taylor lets out a little utterance slip, and Danny doesn't catch it, but he asks, Taylor finally spills the beans to her old man. It was Emma, all along. Emma's been bullying her this whole time. But, wait. She finally says it by saying, it's her, Emma.
Yeah. I really like sort of the pacing of this because it takes Danny a second to process and catch up. Because she sort of just says that and lets it sit there. And eventually he says, "Oh." And the other responds, "From the beginning, her and her friends." And she just starts crying. But even before she realizes she feels like crying, the tears are coming out. And then she goes for her glasses to wipe away the tears. And then she just really, really can't stop crying. "Stupid head injury," I mumbled. "Stupid mood swings. I'm supposed to be better by now. Taylor, kiddo, I don't think it's the only reason."
Yeah.
Oh, Danny.
Danny! And then this is just a further excerpt from the chapter. He pulled over. What are you doing? I asked, wiping ineffectually at my cheek. We gotta be home before the curfew. He undid our seatbelts and pulled me into a hug, my face against his shoulder, my breath hitched with a sob. It's fine, he assured me. But we've got time. Take as long as you need. Yeah.
Danny actually being a good parent this chapter. Good job, dude.
My God. Well, do we have any final chapter thoughts? Other than that it's awesome when it's like, kapoom! Kapow!
Kablammo! Shablam!
Rock!
Pow! Yeah. This chapter I just think really has a lot of those themes sort of coming to the surface. We already mentioned, the one set on its function. We mentioned during the chapter that sort of disconnect between the public and private perception of things. They're just all sort of front and center this chapter.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think it's good that we get to see it so clearly. It's maybe a good place for people who aren't picking up on some of the other stuff to do so. And also, they still sprinkle in all the small themes of the story, like the class disparities and stuff, and weaving in the ideas that Danny is a union man and lower class basically compared to someone like Alan Barnes, and that Alan can use his money to push Danny around. I mean, that we'll learn that overall in the next chapter. Yeah, but I'm just thinking overall these chapters are just great at that, weaving every little thing in. It feels like. But yeah, I think we'll move on to 5.4. Do you want to start or should I?
I think you should take it.
All right, so start here. Wildbow's really favoring the mini time skips this arc. We jump forward to a meeting at Winslow where Taylor and Danny have been waiting outside the office for far too long. Taylor complains that this must be intentional, though it really seems it's because Sophia's late. Danny acknowledges the possibility Taylor's right before offering the answer that they're probably just waiting for the other girl. You know.
Yeah. Oh, that's Sophia.
Yeah.
Taylor is slouching in her chair to see the gap between the blinds and the window to watch for the other side to arrive. Emma and her dad had showed up, looking totally casual and unstressed, like it was a regular day. She isn't even worried. We get a description of Alan in comparison to Emma. He was big in every sense of the word. Oh, every sense of the word, Taylor. The only thing they seem to have in common is red hair and a biggish chest, which only gets mentioned about Emma, but is clearly true about Alan, given that he's big in every sense of the word.
Oh my god, I couldn't help but also be childish.
Look, if Taylor's going to throw me lines like that, I'm not going to not say them.
Yeah. Vale says, the combat was a little over the top. Sad to see Skitter taken into custody, but glad she escaped.
Yeah, it was really intense. The chase scene especially was, wow.
Yeah. They really moved a lot in that chase scene.
Ho ho.
Madison and her parents are looking concerned. Alan is consoling Madison's parents, but Madison's just looking at the ground, not talking, unless to answer something Emma was saying to her. It's like she's feeling some sort of soul-crushing guilt and remorse. Perhaps she's finally taking stock of her actions.
I'm not certain it's necessarily like actual sadness at what she's done to Taylor so much as the crushing realization that her actions have caught up with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, can feel bad, but I'm also not sorry for her.
Oh, no, I don't feel bad for her. I feel like, yes, feel the inner turmoil.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sophia shows up, and she looks pissed. She looks sullen, angry, an expression that reminded me of bitch. Taylor. Just because she's a bitch doesn't mean she's a bitch. Taylor sees the woman accompanying Sophia and thinks that they must not be related. The one has blonde hair and blue eyes with a heart-shaped face. Sounds like she's fitting with the Dallins.
Yeah. When the secretary gets them together into the office, Danny reassures Taylor and says to look confident and mentions that Alan, as a lawyer, is a master of manipulating the system. We learn that Alan himself was the one to call the meeting. Seems like he's obviously making a play to get ahead of any consequences for Emma. They sit at an egg-shaped conference room table. For the first time, we get to see Wildbow's ultimate parahumans theme, Egg Bad. And I knew it was through and throughout Ward, but I had forgotten that we get an ominous egg moment so early in Worm.
It's also a fucking big conference table for a guidance counselor room. Like 20 people are around this table.
I got the impression they were in the main meeting room of the school because it was the only place that would house them. Vel said no, that was before.
Yep. So, sitting at the tip of the egg, Taylor can't help but draw connections between the seating here and the seating at Somers Rock, the implicit alignments. And the only teacher sitting next to Taylor's end is Mrs. Knott. She isn't even sure if Mrs. Knott would have sat on their end had there been another open seat.
Yeah, sad. So Vale says anti-eggist, anti-BBQist. It's true. Can't believe it.
Really, what I'm hearing is that the potato salad is the true villain, as it is both a barbecue food and an egg related food.
I think that's like the core premise of Parahumans. Actually, is that potato salad is bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you gotta read deep for these themes, but they're there.
You can find them if you look.
Yeah.
Taylor has learned from Bitch's mistake and told her father at least a bit about what's been going on, including how she missed some classes. She just hasn't specified exactly how much. I was worried it would come up. Worried this wouldn't go the way I hoped. Worried I'd find some way to fuck it up.
Oh, Taylor. Well, at least we get to see her continuing being super judgy, this time aimed at the principal's appearance. Without even knowing if Taylor is already Without even knowing it, Taylor is already roasting the haircut that Pig O sports throughout the story. Yep. Taylor thinks the principal's dressed for a funeral, wearing all black. Then she starts off the meeting. We are here to discuss incidents where one of our students has been victimized. Miss Hebert? That's me.
Taylor will later comment on this, but she gets referred to as Miss Hebert, while the other girls either get full names or first name only. The principal lightly chastises Sophia for getting in trouble a lot, but at the same time is complimenting her track and field skills. Now, if I'm to understand matters, Emma was attacked outside of school premises by Miss Hebert, and shortly after, she was accused of bullying. Yes, Alan spoke. Her father called me, confronted me, and I thought it best to take this to official channels. That's probably best, the principal agreed. Let's put this matter to rest. As though this is something that can be put to rest in a single meeting.
You know, when Taylor had mentioned the thing about the names, I didn't actually go back and look for that. Like, Miss Hebert is actually much more than I was expecting, on this sort of second reading.
Mm.
Like, it is her name. It's more than just a descriptor, which is the sort of lawyerly behavior that Taylor mentions later. We'll get to that, though.
Mm-hmm.
The principal looks to Taylor and Danny to lay out the charges, leaving it on the concussed, long-time bullying victim who did not arrange the meeting to be fully prepared. Well, the joke's on you. Taylor is prepared. Taylor questions this, and when asked to lay out all the major incidents, she loses her cool a bit, but makes a good point bringing up all the minor incidents, making her day-to-day life miserable. Yeah, I mean, the sort of like courtroom responses would be, we can do so, but you'll have to, give us time to arrange all of the things, and we can send you like a full thing. But this isn't a courtroom proceeding, thank goodness, because stupid Alan Barnes is here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this, Greg had written a note, and I had a minor counterpoint, but it's not like disagreeing with what he said, really. It's, Taylor. The one thing you should never do is attack the judge, but she's immediately challenging the principal over and over again, including cutting her off mid-sentence, not getting off on the right foot, truly. And I said, in some ways you're right, and what I'm about to describe is what's supposed to be, not what is, but I think it's important to point out that the principal is supposed to be an advocate for all students, and should be, that should be the baseline to be able to understand, or no, they should have the baseline understanding of the age group they oversee and the emotionality of a victim, which I think this principal does a terrible job at. Like, Taylor shouldn't have to act like she's on trial if the school was functioning properly. They would be more on the side of the person who they have evidence was being victimized. I don't know. I can't think of anything that happened to
Sure.
anyone
I mean,
at a school that I can think
this
of worse
is an
than.
argument between multiple students all in her care,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
One side saying that she is being bullied, the other side saying, no, it's no big deal. Like, someone
Yeah.
has to be an arbiter, and she is essentially filling the role of a judge in this proceeding. She is very bad at it, true, but Taylor also really isn't handling this interaction very well. She's colored by all the ways she's had to deal with the school staff in the past, and she knows she's going to be disappointed, and she is going to be, but you still, the way she approaches this does not really give the principal a good way to sort of save face and give Taylor what she wants, which is not a great way to approach it, in my opinion.
I know that it's not the best strat, but if the principal was even trying to do right by Taylor, they would factor in the January stuff that they know about, the stuff that can be vouched for by various teachers, like those instances that they definitely have evidence of, and then be like, okay, and she's fingering the bullies, and you know, I don't know, it seems like she would understand the emotional psychology of a teenager if she was a proper educator, and she would be able to take into account that oh, this person is not going to have the capacity to start this conversation from a place where they could win a court battle. It's just not like what you like. That's not how you should be treating students when you're an educator, as someone who needs to like win a court battle.
Sure. Yeah, Vale says Miss Hebert is because she doesn't know her first name. Didn't have time to look it up. They're super busy. Yeah, she says it later, but I think that's just because like someone behind the Heberts like sees Blackwell being like gesturing, and she writes Taylor on the wall quickly behind them. So you're like, ah, yes, Taylor. Taylor! That's the one. Got it. The principal does very well noting how victims tend to exaggerate, though. She knows her stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like what I was saying, where you do need sort of an arbiter for these situations, someone who can sit back and be impartial and try to suss out, like, what is true and what is not. You have your advocates in the form of parents and the students themselves.
But
But
there's obvious
William
financial
also-
bullying going on between the parties and stuff too. Like out in the open.
You're assuming Blackwell notices anything. However, the other teachers definitely should know this and should be on top of it and aren't. And again, like I'll have words for them later, I think.
Well, it's like Danny
Just probably-
says, like the principal herself is the one who looked him in the eye and said that they'd look after Taylor.
Yes, she made
an empty promise,
I'm
but
s-
she like that's the thing is that like
and I'm certain it gets mentioned. I don't know if it was later or earlier in the story that the school paid for her hospital costs. I'm certain that must have like included some sort of indemnification agreement for the school. But that part about looking after Taylor clearly wasn't in that, and it's just like a thing the principal agreed to and then promptly fucking ignored.
Right. 2 + 4 × 5 says, well, to be fair, the principal isn't an educator. She's a principal. I know that she's an administrator, but like, I think that you should have administrators who are former educators in an education setting. So, it's just an opinion, though, I guess.
I guess the point being, though, that the principal is the person sort of furthest removed from directly shepherding the growth of children. She's more about operating the facility, making certain that all the teachers and staff and students and everything is flowing well. Which again is not to excuse her bad behavior here, but to say I can sort of see where she would be coming from as like a starting position in this whole debacle.
Oh, Vale says, basically it's easier to just say that it's a punctuation joke first. I will? Look, after Taylor, I promise there will be no more bullying. Danny didn't see the punctuation. It was after Taylor.
Oh yeah, full on business card Simpsons. Just put down, just add a bit of punctuation and it all makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. You just change it up a little bit, and now you have their money. I mean, what? Well, to be fair, this meeting was never fair. It says 2 + 4 × 5. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anyways, Taylor busts out her prepped papers and starts reading down the list. She gets over 7 incidents or so deep when the principal says, "Not very pleasant, is it?" And I love how flabbergasted she is once Taylor lists off, that giant paragraph, and then she's like, that was the first day. On to day 2. The principal asks how many entries she has. And Taylor, probably sensing she was losing her time on the stand, barrels forward with the incidents from the second day, which is another big long list, including a bunch of hate mail she got through her school email. And she's got them all printed out, and highlighted the ones sent during school hours or from school email addresses.
Yeah. Miss Knott looks through the pile of papers with the emails and reads some off. They're pretty bad, but also what you might expect. And the quote is, "Eat glass and choke. Looking at you depresses me. Die in a fire." Danny tries to get things back on track, but and and then says that they can go through the emails later, but they need to let Taylor finish what she was saying, having not even finished reading the events of the second day yet.
Is blazing to step up their trolling game. These are weak stuff. This is like entry level. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just not that good at it.
Mm-hmm. The principal cuts her off after she starts trying to list the things that happened to her. Taylor says they can't make a fair judgment if they haven't heard everything. And the principal asks if she can just list off the most relevant stuff. Taylor responds with, "They're all relevant. If it bothers you to have to listen to it all, imagine what it feels like to live through it." And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this is like a depressingly real sort of thing. And I've heard this exact sentiment before, but in the context of racism, that people have more problems listening to depictions of racism than they do, witnessing them happening all the time around them. Taylor's losing her cool here again. Danny puts his hand on her shoulder while she says this, making her think that she was raising her voice.
Yeah, I think that she can't tell. She's all...
Yeah, she's barely holding back, and she can it's hard for her to tell exactly like how strong she's coming on here.
Yeah, Vale says, how the hell does the fact that this is day one and there are hundreds more that get worse make this less in favor of listening to Taylor? That really bugged me and still does. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's too much bullying. We just can't listen to all of this. It's unrealistic for us to hear you out. This chapter is one of the most aggravating pieces of fiction I've read because it's so plausible that things like this happen all the time IRL. Says 2 + 4 × 5. Yeah, for real. And then Taylor surveys the other girls for a moment. Madison looks properly upset, but Sophia is glaring at Taylor, and Emma just looks bored and confident. I didn't like that. And then I put a fake quote. Sounds pretty bad, but how you gonna prove it? Alan, probably.
Ugh.
Yeah. Alan's such a douche. I guess he is a lawyer, so that may have been a given. Mrs. Knott unfortunately agrees with him, at least in regards to the emails. They start dismissing a bunch of the evidence Taylor has gathered, and with it, also dismiss Taylor's cool. All of my work, all the hours I'd put into logging events, when remembering the events of the day was the last thing I wanted to do. Dash to the winds. I clenched my fists in my lap.
Yeah, Taylor comes in here with a mountain of evidence. And there's like, oh, there could possibly be some circumstance in which this isn't a bunch of bullying. Which...
Oh, wait, I forgot. We totally forgot something.
Oh, sorry.
To do this, it can play in the background.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sorry. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, Vale says, on the other hand, Alan Barnes is totally going to have a talk with Emma about this and tell her she needs to be more careful destroying people in the future. Yeah. That's about the shape of it.
Vic has arrived. Says right in time to catch your mistakes. I'm not quite sure what that means, but okay.
But she didn't start the art on time.
Oh. Gotcha.
But yeah, the fact that Taylor comes armed with evidence, and the most the other side can muster up is not all of this is like provable beyond a reasonable doubt, which is not, it's a courtroom standard, not really applicable here. Is frankly ridiculous.
Yeah. Where are we at? I was scrolling around. Greg, do you know quite where we are on here? Now I am making mistakes. Got distracted.
Yes.
Taylor didn't give me any time to prepare. Where heart sounds like art, is it at all redundant to say both? Taylor, fully prepared. So, Ah, yes. So that's where we are. Okay. And are you still mid?
No, go on.
Oh, so am I down here?
Oh, no, sorry, yeah. Danny is trying to keep Taylor on track and make sure she's okay, and pulls out a recent incident that happened, that Gladly, who was part of the meeting, knows about. Bringing up the multiple vandalizations of her desk, she asks if he remembers, which he does. Then she asks if he remembers seeing her in the hall after class, cornered by girls, surrounded and taunted. I remember seeing you in the hall with other girls, yes. If I remember, it was not long after you told me you wanted to handle things on your own.
That is not what I said. I had to control myself to keep from shouting. I said I thought this situation here, with all the parents and teachers gathered, would be a farce. So far, you're not proving me wrong. And then, this is the feeling I know well. You lay out a situation and explain to someone exactly what will happen. They say you're wrong or you're being negative or paranoid. And then that exact thing happens, just like you said. And they be all like, I don't know, I just don't really see what you mean.
Yeah, but I really think this is part of Taylor's bad diplomacy in this moment, right? You have to, even if you know exactly like how they'll react given the straight facts, you sort of have to give them a way to reframe it in a way that's more positive for them. Otherwise, they're just gonna be terrible people.
Yeah.
Anyways, Danny is trying to get Taylor to calm down again and steps in. Are you accusing my daughter of making up everything she's noted here? To which the principal is pretty wishy-washy. She says she's not discounting it, but she thinks Taylor could be embellishing events. We want to ensure that these three girls get fair treatment. Do I started. My dad squeezed my hand. Shut up.
Yeah. Danny continues to stick up for Taylor. I think he does a great here, given the circumstances. My daughter deserves fair treatment too. And if even 1 in 10 of these events did occur, it speaks to an ongoing campaign of severe abuse. Does anyone disagree? But when he asks that, Alan, the only person in the room maxing out their punchability rating faster than Emma, says, Abuse is a strong word, Alan spoke. You still haven't proven. But Danny isn't having any of it, and he asks Alan to please shut up. He points out that this isn't a courtroom and that everyone in the room knows that the girls are guilty of the things that they're being accused of. Nobody even denies that, really.
No, yeah, they really can't muster anything to be like, no. And then finally we get to the point where Danny tells Alan that if he's saying Taylor is a liar, he just needs to say it outright. Alan doesn't do so. He just hedges and says he doesn't think that she's lying, but then tries to use the death of and her mother as ammo, like Emma did in the hallway scene in 2.4. Like daughter, like father. At this point, Taylor pretty much loses it. She starts shoving papers off the table. Her power is roaring in her ears. She's barely holding back. Don't go there. Don't do that. Prove you're at least that human. Taylor sees Emma is smirking in the moments before she puts her hands up to hide it.
Yeah. And Vale says, this scene would actually work in a Broadway musical. And I think that would be really funny. Yeah. It totally would. Finally, we get to the point when Danny tells Alan that if he's saying Taylor is a liar, he needs to say it outright. Alan hedges and says he doesn't think she's lying, and tries to use the death of Annette as ammo, just like Emma did in the hallway in the 2.4. No, oh my god, I totally am rereading a paragraph like a psycho. Like my true self. Danny brings up the incident from January where Taylor ended up in the hospital and includes that it's the most disgusting prank he's ever even heard of. And he brings up the promises made in the hospital by the principal. You looked me in the eye and promised me you would look after Taylor. Keep an eye out. You obviously haven't. And then in the words of Greg, ooh, Danny, he's popping off this chapter.
Yeah, Danny.
Yeah.
Taylor's math teacher speaks up and justifies that they couldn't do enough to help Taylor because the school is underfunded and falling apart with gang violence. Really inspiring answer, Our school's a shithole, so we let it become even more of a shithole. Danny questions if they're taking Taylor's situation seriously, and the principal is exasperated in her answer. Alan cuts in and asks what the Heberts actually want to see happen in this meeting.
Yeah. So we're reminded about Danny's job.
He was more than a hero. He was a union man.
And he made sure they arrived at the meeting with a plan. Taylor lays out her only demand: transfer me to Arcadia High, which shocks the table. The principal thought that Taylor was going to demand expulsion. After accidentally swearing as a direct answer to the principal, Taylor suggests being expelled from Winslow would be a reward, and she isn't wrong. Rewarding? The principal spoke. I think she was insulted. Good.
Yeah, seriously. I'm actually not certain how the school districts work in Brockton Bay. Is there just the one public school? Is Arcadia a public school?
I don't know. I think it's just a contrived situation.
Okay.
Arcadia is public, by the way. Sorry, I do know that part, but it's very bizarre to only have these couple schools. Like, even the tiny place we come from has four
Immaculata,
major.
is clearly one of those private Christian schools, and
Yeah.
then apparently like Winslow and Arcadia are both public schools in question mark the same district, different districts. I don't know. It's just really weird.
I think it's just like the American public school system is so needlessly complicated that Wildbow probably just doesn't know how needlessly complicated it is.
What usually happens is if you're expelled from a school, you're expelled from all the schools in that district. You can't go back to if you're expelled from one of the schools here in Boise, you can't go the Boise school district. You can't go back to the Boise school district school. They're all barred to you for whatever period until you do whatever appeal stuff. So you have to go private usually at that point, or go to the next district over.
It's so funny. One of the only people we know who got expelled from a school hopped from private to public.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
And for something he did at the public school that he ended up going to. Anyway.
Yeah. What a character. You can write stories about that guy.
He would work in this book. I think he'd be a really good Cape.
Yep.
Anyhow. I think this was you? Yeah?
Yes. 1 second. I just want to catch up with the chat a little bit. Bill says, hand him to the IEL. Wait, wrong series. Yeah, you're on that wheel of time. Huh? Very cool. Victoria says, I think Arcadia is public, and then there's a third school that they all go to later. I mean, yeah, it depends on the size of the city. Typically, if there's a public, they're fairly unified unless they're like different municipalities. Sometimes not. I don't know. It gets all complicated. Well, it's already weird in real life before crazy Wildbow stuff.
I was just gonna say, the school they go to later isn't like a different school. It's just Arcadia again.
Yes. Post Troubles.
Yeah.
Theoretically, Arcadia could be charter, which is way more dumb and complicated. Yeah. There's Welcome to America.
Yeah, charter's the worst. Things. I think Arcadia is slightly too far away for it to count as within X miles of her house. Yeah.
It's one of those things where, in more extraordinary circumstances, you can go to schools outside the normal radius for stuff like that. But these administrators are not interested in smoothing over that operation in any way. Anyways, so talks about how Arcadius. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to just hit a few other things. Vale said, I'm somewhat surprised Emma and Sophia aren't both at Arcadia too. It seems like the privileged school where people actually care. It does seem like they would go there. And then Vale agrees with me that the third school later is Arcadia when it gets fixed up. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a bit surprised Emma isn't at Arcadia, but I think Sophia isn't for reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways. Heather talks about how Arcadia is a much better school than Winslow, and she's unlikely to get bullied there. And if she did, there are staff members who would actually have the time and resources to help her. When asked if this is all she would want, Taylor lets them know that she actually thinks it would be what would give you a punishment? 2 months of in-school suspension for all 3 of the bullies, which would be until the end of the school year. Sophia is one of our best runners in track and field, the principal spoke. Great job not tipping your hand there, principal. I really, really don't care, I replied. Sophia glared at me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Gladly starts to ask why she wants in-school suspension and doesn't think it's realistic. Taylor outright says she'd prefer the bullies get no punishment rather than a regular suspension. Almost immediately after that, the principal suggests the 2-week suspension. This bold stroke truly showcases Winslow's leadership.
Yes.
There's some more back and forth with Alan being flippant and Danny being annoyed at him. Sophia's guardian breaks into things, mentioning that losing the opportunity to be in track and field team would only lead to further spiraling and worse behavior from Sophia. She also says that Danny would feel differently if the tables were turned. But I honestly think that's wrong. I think Danny's the only parent here who would take it just as seriously if Taylor was like on the other side of the table.
Yeah, definitely. I also sort of wonder how Madison's parents would react if, like, Alan Barnes wasn't here, to be honest.
Right, yeah. I mean, he kind of laid some groundwork on them before the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Danny continues to stick up for Taylor, saying that he thinks 2 weeks regular suspension is a joke, given the seriousness of what has been done to Taylor. Alan goes back to saying they don't have anything to back up these claims. Taylor thinks for a moment Danny is going to hit Alan, which,
Fair.
he should. But before that happens, the principal starts to justify why 2 weeks is good, saying their schoolwork will suffer to the point they might fail the year. Taylor makes the obvious protest that her schoolwork has also suffered from this. Taylor's power really starts ramping up at this point. She's just furious, and it's taking all of her control just to keep the bugs away.
Yes. As a slight aside, I think the 2-week suspension is ridiculous because they're treating a year and a half of stacked up bullying as one bad incident. But there's probably enough for a suspension a week for all 3 of them there. And if they had met punishment as things went along, they would be like well past the point of expulsion. And like obviously I get the circumstances. I read the chapter, blah blah blah. But it is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, combined with like the January incident, if you even suspect that these folks were involved, expulsion really is the only answer. Like suspension wouldn't even be on the table.
Yeah. I mean,
like get out of the school. We don't want you.
It was an extreme incident,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyhow, eye for an eye justice doesn't do anyone any favors, says the principal. She should probably stop giving Taylor ideas about eyes and getting justice that has to do with eyes. Taylor is trying to keep it cool, but doesn't see any justice here. The principal tells her that they're being punished, and Taylor has to willfully stop her power from bringing a swarm into the school. She takes a deep breath, but she is losing it. She tries to sidestep things and makes another play for being transferred, and the principal immediately pushes back and says, something about jurisdictions, blah, blah, blah. Taylor pleads with her to try, and when she realizes that it's probably not going to happen, she's done. She gets to her feet, with Danny trying to keep her calm, putting a hand on her arm.
They can't even promise her a transfer to Arcadia. Taylor points out the thing I mentioned about the names earlier, where they're not calling her by her first name and mentions it being a lawyer trick. The principal tells Taylor she's being paranoid, and Taylor's well and truly fed up. "Fuck you," I snapped. "You disgust me. You're a deluded, slimy, self-serving..." "Taylor!" My dad pulled up on my arm. "Stop!"
Yep. Taylor focuses her mind to get the bugs to go away, as they've been closing in whenever she loses even a bit of concentration. Then she goes totally ham. Maybe I'll bring a weapon to school. If I threaten to stab one of these girls, would you at least expel me? Please? Danny says, Taylor, and pulls her into a hug that stops her from talking. Ellen threatens to call the cops, and Danny says this whole meeting has been a joke. He's going to contact his friend in the media to cause public pressure.
Alan hits Danny with the threat of a lawsuit and mentions that they have video evidence of the mall punch and a letter from Shadowstalker, the SS, saying Taylor's the bad guy. We already knew this, but it's reconfirmed that Alan is just as horrible a person as his daughter. If only they were in some sort of chocolate factory, there would be a karmic fate awaiting them, complete with little orange singing people.
Yes, definitely.
Taylor realizes that Emma has been confident because they have this evidence to hold over their heads.
Danny says it's ridiculous and there are obvious mitigating circumstances. Then Ellen reminds Danny that most lawsuits aren't really determined by who is right and wrong, more just who has the money to continue. Don't you see how fucked up this is? He's blackmailing us right in front of you, and you can't understand this manipulation has been going on from the beginning? I don't like the sound of it, but we can only comment and act on what happens in school. It's happening right here. You know what I mean.
It's so fucked.
Mm.
Oh my god. Taylor can't stand to be in... Oh, and it hurts more because Mrs. Knott, she just thinks about it and she's like, she's probably my favorite teacher. Because she just doesn't like any of them. Taylor can't stand to be in that room for even one more minute. She nopes the fuck out. Danny tries to follow her and get her to go home. She says, no, I need to get going. I won't be home for dinner. Danny tries to stop her and says, I want you to know I love you. This is far from over, and I'll be waiting for you when you come home. Don't give up, and don't do anything reckless. Taylor only heard the first 3 words of that last sentence.
Don't do anything reckless? Who do you think you're talking to?
Exactly. Vale said, I don't know what that means there. Or what they mean
you
there.
know what I mean? It's happening right here. You know what I mean. Do I? Do I know what you mean?
I think I know what she's trying to say, which is that this isn't like something... Like, this is somehow aside from... Yeah.
Yeah.
From
it's
regular
not like
school.
Yeah, this is an interaction which is not normally within the purview of school activities in terms of like, the whole confrontation at the mall and any fallout from that. But the fact that they're being threatened with this as a way to shut them up about the bullying that happened at school is relevant. Really.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's ridiculous what's happening. But she manages to say, okay, then leaves out the front door of the school. And Vale dropped a pretty good joke here. After Taylor leaves, the principal checks the clock and realizes they saved 20 minutes by using this tactic. Now they have plenty of time for the business of the afternoon.
Yeah. Save time with this one simple trick.
Taylor hates her.
A bug-powered supervillain.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, anyways. Once Taylor is sure Danny isn't following her, she gets out her cell phone and calls Lisa. Hey, how did it go? I couldn't find the words for reply. That bad? Yeah. What do you need? Want to hit someone. And, she didn't get it out of her system last chapter. Gotta punch something more.
More!
She got a taste for it.
Once she's tasted human blood, she can never go back. Tattletale is on board. She says they're about to raid the ABB. They hadn't told her because of the concussion and her meeting, but now she's in it too. They're splitting up the Undersiders to go with groups from other teams for multiple coordinated attacks. Taylor will be with Bitch and a Traveler 2 and some of Fault Line's crew and probably some Empire 88. not mentioned here, but they'll also be there, are mercenaries from Coil's organization. Spoilies!
Mm-hmm. Yep. Don't do anything reckless, Taylor.
Exactly.
Taylor sees the bus approaching her at the far end of the street. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Damn. So, any final chapter thoughts on this extremely pivotal chapter?
It's painful to read. In a
It's,
good way.
yeah. I was gonna say, it's like, sort of pivotal in a way, but because of the fact that, like, it felt like an eventuality also to me. Like just something we would, like, even before I had read the story, I thought a scene like this was going to happen once I was like
Mhm.
one or two arcs in. And so yeah, I don't know. It somehow manages to be both. Like, and the realness of it feels like it really innovates the chapter, and I don't know. It just hits hard, even though I kind of like knew it was coming.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. You would have that dread that something's going to pop up, especially once Taylor starts skipping school. That once that comes out of the closet and Danny and the school and Taylor all sort of know these things at the same time, that there's going to be a confrontation of some point, of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Just the exact shape of it is, we all knew it was going to be awful, and it was.
Yeah. Vale says, I did not expect this the first time. It is so visceral and infuriating. Yeah. I I've been in enough principals meetings to know what's coming. I've been had a principal try to expel me enough times to know how to avoid it.
You dodged like this.
You dodge like this with your hands. Uh, anyway, yeah. Do you have any more things you want to say before we move on to the characters section?
No, let's move on.
All right. Let you start us off with Danny.
Sure, yeah. We get to see Danny actually being a real good, supportive parent these chapters. He's making an effort to include Taylor in activities as she recovers, and once the bullying is revealed, he really supports her in this meeting in 5.4 wholeheartedly. I don't know, just mostly it makes me think that Taylor could have and should have been open with him because he would have supported her, and maybe this stuff could have been resolved before it got so awful.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
of course, you know, characters aren't perfect.
Well, they also
Even though
had like
Danny,
kind of a bad relationship before because of the
yeah,
like
her mother's
split
death
after
and
her
they sort
mom
of
died.
drifted apart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
but even so, I mean, like, that's like one of those sort of branching points where, like, you could imagine the story going very differently if they had been more open with each other. Uh, which just means that the story wouldn't have happened. So
Yeah. Exactly. It's just one of those like core premises of the story. Um Vale says the funny thing about the scene, I bet 99% of readers fantasize that Taylor nukes the school with bugs, which completely puts you in the headspace of Taylor at the time. Yeah, but it has that effect on a lot of people.
yeah, I mean, her power was continuously said to be just roaring in her ears, like clawing to get in, and she is pushing it back.
Mm. Mm. Truly.
Her power wants to go full Rambo on this school, but she Taylor is holding on for now.
Mm-hmm. So, for Alan, in contrast, here is a bad parent, shows no remorse for his daughter's actions or intent to fix her behavior. He works to avoid any consequences for Emma at the expense of her victim.
Yeah, just the fact that he shows absolutely no remorse is really what kills it for me. He doesn't care, or is not willing to show that he cares even a little bit, which just enables Emma to be a terrible person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'd pulled out this little bit, which we had quoted before above, but I think it's important just in terms of like framing how the bullies are in 5.4, which is if it bothers you to have to listen to it all, imagine what it feels like to live through it. Maybe you'll get just a fraction of a percent of an idea of what going to school with them felt like. I looked at the girls. Only Madison looked really upset. Sophia was glaring at me, and Emma managed to look bored, confident. I didn't like that. And that's just really sort of how they are here. Emma is aloof, Sophia is angry, she's glaring, and Madison is just struck with the realization that she is fucked around and she might be finding out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And we'll go through the bullies here. Emma, despite saying only 2 words, "Hi, Taylor." Emma looms large in these chapters. I feel like we learn a lot about Emma in an indirect way, seeing her dad give us some insight into how she could get so rotten. Yeah, he
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Emma is present for most of the word count of these chapters, right? She's in the entire meeting. She's there for a lot of 5.3. But she barely says anything. She is just her dad's picking up all the terrible slack. Good job, Dad.
Well, she well, definitely on that count, but she gives off the what's the kind of nen that is the waves of like your power, you know, how Hisoka scares Gon and Killua.
Oh God, I don't remember what it's called. Sorry.
Whatever version of Nen that is, he's just so her bully energy. Emma can just fire off wave after wave of bully energy without even saying anything. Yeah, she's too powerful.
Yeah. Let me get to Sophia. Sophia was the last to arrive. She looked sullen, angry, an expression that reminded me of bitch. The woman who accompanied her was most definitely not her mother. So, Sophia's clearly a problem child. I mean, we didn't really get to see very much of what's behind the scenes for any of these bullies until now. But we can definitely see that Sophia has been in trouble before. Uh, her guardian doesn't really speak up here too much, but we do hear about how Sophia has been in detention before, about how her guardian thinks that she really has to keep doing track and field because the sports give her some structure to her life. And you know, I it's hard to argue against that. I really wish that Sophia could spend more energy doing sports and less doing, you know, all of the rest of that shit.
Yeah, I mean for sure. If she was running until she was too tired to push Taylor down the stairs, I think it'd be better for all of them.
Yeah, or doing other things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was about to do some spoilers, and I'm like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah, yeah. So, Madison, the only one of the bullies and parents who seems even slightly remorseful. Um, I believe because of future materials that Madison had not really fully considered her actions for a long time, and then she really does feel remorse, and she deserves the pain of the remorse that she feels. So that's why I'm willing to believe that she feels remorse, because it is more painful.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people who just will coast along with whatever social structures other people set up and not make waves, especially when they're benefiting from it. And Madison is one of those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, but now we finally get to the school staff. Oh boy, they they really need to sit down. They need to work over how this could have been allowed to happen. They need to take steps to prevent such abuse from happening again. But it's so obvious that they are not. They should have learned the lesson in January already. There was this horrific bullying event that happened at their school, and they've just let it keep going. They've let egregious and flagrant bullying continue for this entire time. And mm, it really does, though, allow you to understand why this meeting goes so poorly. Because the staff is really complicit. This has all happened on their watch. But no one is really going to want to admit that. They're going to want to have all sorts of excuses about why they're not guilty, why this isn't really a problem. They're going to want to downplay how severe it is and just say, no, it's not. It's not really such a big deal you're making out of it. Uh, it's horrible, and I don't like it, and I don't like them either.
Yeah, yeah. Vale says they also need to read the whole list of everything that happened to identify patterns and trends to include in the student handbook and staff training. Sadly, they are just so busy.
Yeah, we've got so many things we're doing, which includes not watching students.
Mm-hmm. You can't
I'm
really
writing things on this
watch
blackboard.
students.
These
Yeah.
equations won't write themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, I thought of a good audience participation question, and I better write it down because I will forget it in 5 seconds.
Oh boy. Well, while you're writing that down, unless you have something extra for the school staff, I'm going to skip down to world power knowledge and world building.
Go for it.
So we really get to see a couple of parahumans in these chapters. There's the mall. Manpower gets mentioned briefly, but we don't learn anything about him, so I'll skip over him. We do get some stuff about Battery, though. She's a member of the local protectorate, briefly head of the wards. Her power let her charge up as she stood still and concentrated, with every second spent charging giving her a few seconds of greatly enhanced speed, some extra strength, and some electromagnetic powers. Her costume is white and dark gray, with cobalt blue lines tracing it like you might see on a circuit board. And yeah, Battery. Battery has a super cool power. This sort of like drawback, the thing that allows her to actually do cool parahumans things, being having to stand still and concentrate. That's a big thing to ask for in a chaotic combat. So you can just imagine how her being on the field warps how her team has to fight around her, and how fighting her means that you sort of have to put as much continuous pressure on her as you can manage.
It's true. And she has a tempo, and you have to fight in that tempo, but on her off moments. But as we see in later use, like, however much of a drawback it might be, she's still, like, fast and hard to stop. Like, it's not a slow charge up. It goes pretty snappy.
Yeah, I paused a little bit, which was about inquiries about whether her teammate Assault was her boyfriend or her brother had been met with coy deflections, leading a small fraction of the local superhero fans to surmise he was both. I also think she doesn't want to answer the question, and in doing so, she has made it so much worse.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we just get a little note about how Taylor really thinks that she might be a heroine that she could look up to, which is, nice.
Hooray! She has a hero! I was gonna sing that song.
You're holding out?
And no, a different one. Like a dumb rock song, but no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm too embarrassed. I lost the moment. Moving on to Battery's cool, but moving on to Shadowstalker. Shadowstalker nodded and then turned to walk through the glass door to say something to the soldier stationed outside. Literally through the door. As she did it, she turned a little smoky, like she was made of sand and not anything solid. I kind of felt like I should dislike or hate her on principle, since she was Gru's self-declared nemesis. And then Greg hit us with a, "Trust your feelings, Taylor."
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, you're going to hate her on principle? How appropriate for these chapters.
My God. She can turn mostly insubstantial along with her gear, then back again. This has all sorts of cool applications. She also, we got it mentioned in the Arc 3 when they were doing a rundown on their enemies. Her crossbow and ammo are intangible while she's holding them, but once she fires the arrow from the crossbow, which still works in her shadow state, then after it's left her person, it no longer is affected by her power and just hits you as a real arrow/bolt. Like it's nobody's business.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Cool. Cool.
And then I had the thing that I was using as the placeholder for this week. We never ended up with a question, so anyone who's got any big last thoughts on the school meeting, go for it. And I'm going to look at the audience participation, which has no answers, which is fair, because I only mentioned it at the start of this cast. Let's see here. Vale says, I bet the PRT has an actual chapter in their marketing training material on avoiding funny names. Brockton Bay is yet again the reason for needing this sort of guide after Clock Blocker and the ABB.
No, assault and battery.
Oh, assault and battery and assault and battery. I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. Brockton Bay has some real questionable hero names. That's for sure.
Bill, the question was basically just we don't have anything, so if you have any big thoughts about the meeting, if there's anything you want to say about it that we haven't already said, we did talk about it a lot, though.
I do want to say, though, in terms of hero names, the slightly funny ones, or the ones that are that form some sort of interesting combination, like assault and battery, are more memorable.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to remember, like, oh yeah, Aegis, that's a really memorable name, over Clock Blocker. That name sticks in your head. You don't forget it, because it's a good name.
Yeah. You also don't forget any of the capes who are, like, mega powerful. Like, when people say legend, you're like, oh yes, legend.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. There's definitely somewhere I'm like, Glastigüenye? Do you really have to be named Glastigüenye?
Well, people don't really know her. She's more esoteric. I meant for the hero side.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
Because all the heroes are very public in terms of like their cape identity.
Like, legend and hero feel like those sort of names that got picked super early on, and then when they're like, yeah, I'm awesome. And no one's picked the name legend before or hero before.
Yeah. I mean, that's the greatest part about getting powers before anyone else is that you get the first pick on names. Armsmaster says nearly that as much in Arc 1. He says, I got into the game 15 years ago, before all the good names were taken. I'm from 1996.
Now you're stuck with Skitter. Fuck you.
Nice. So 2 + 4 × 5 said, my thought, fuck this school. And Vale is taking time to type in a question.
On the fuck this school. I mean, after this, to be entirely honest, as Danny would be like, okay, Taylor, you don't have to go back to Winslow. Like, this is not working. At least I'll withdraw you from the school and we'll figure something out. Just anything. Like, you can't go back there. It's not a reasonable thing to have happen.
Yeah. We can't just all go around punching Emmas every day. We need to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Barnes demonstrates family first mentality, something Brian Grew also holds to. It seems like family first has a negative connotation. How could it be positive in this world/scenes? Well, a real family first approach would be to try and raise Emma to be a good person and not a piece of shit.
Yeah. Because there's a sort of toxic family first, which is what Alan Barnes shows off, where it's, we circle the wagons, we don't care about what kind of behavior people are doing, we just have the in-group and the out-group, and the in-group is good and the out-group is bad. That's no bueno, because that just enables people who are misbehaving as part of the in-group to really be enabled by your protection of them. What you really want to do, especially as, a parental figure, as an educator, as anyone who's in a position of authority over someone, is to not enable them to do whatever they want, but enable them to be a good person.
Yeah. Be like Emma, all those things that you did to Taylor, that was bad, actually. You know, maybe at the very least possible. No. I know you don't agree with Alan Vale. But it does show up enough in the story to be interesting to talk about. Yeah, we gotta focus more on the from this point onward deteriorating relationship between Danny and Taylor. So, I mean, we had plenty of time on it here, but it's easy to let it fall by the wayside because she's just like, I don't go home anymore. Yeah. Oh, Taylor.
Which is really tragic because, I mean, we see that Taylor and Danny, their relationship is more patched up than it's been during this entire story at this moment, right?
Yeah.
They're most in alignment. Danny seems on board with supporting his daughter. Taylor has seen Danny really demonstrate that he's willing to stand up for her, go to bat for her. And then she pulls away again. What I'm hearing really is that she needs a concussion again. She really needs to be bonked upside the head. It worked the first time. It can work again.
2 + 4 × 5 said, quoting me, I know you don't agree with Alan. And then, wow, way to assume Vale has morals. JK. Vale says, they think of me as family. I get it. Yeah, definitely. Family to the stream. No. Oh my god. Yeah, I know that's a really good question. The Alan Barnes question was a really good weekly question. If anybody ever has good audience participation questions and wants to put them in the running, just let me know. I'm really bad at coming up with them. I've been discussing with Greg this week. It's literally the hardest part of the thing to come up with the stupid question.
Or, I mean, if you have another question that you think is relevant for the chapters, feel free to drop it in addition to anything we come up with, because...
Yeah.
I mean, it's not guaranteed that we'll necessarily cover it here, but we might. And we'll at least read it, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, that's... I want to have the audience participation section of the Discord feel open to audience suggestion, not just for the questions we do on the cast, but kind of just whatever you want, like the art that was made, the non-chapter art, that was pretty great. It was the let's see if I can get, I'm gonna save it real quick. It's just a picture of Coil, but I think it's really funny. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah. I find that delightful. Anyway. So yeah. Took me almost 4 minutes, says 2 + 4 × 5. And then the next week's question that I had come up with when I was like, oh, I thought of something, was, if you had to fight one of the 3 ABB capes, which one would you want it to be? You're a parahuman, but you have no idea, when you're making this choice, you don't know what your power is. You don't get a pick. So you could be any random ass parahuman, and you have to fight one of these 3 bastards.
Oh, they're all awful.
Yeah, they're all awful. That's what I'm talking about. It's a pretty good choice. Anyway, I'm going to start the outro music, which I forgot to use as intro music. And
so it goes.
I'm going to start reading off the end of stream thingies. Let's see here. So the intro and outro music for this arc is No Escape, the Crime and Mystery edit by CO.AG Music, which has been a great source of copyright-free music, and they have tons of stuff on YouTube. I really suggest their music. They're really cool about it. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. And all those links can be found in the description. Let's see here. Oh, I missed a couple chats. Bakada, easy answer, no test. Anyway. Bye, guys. I'll see y'all next week. And thank you for hosting, Greg.
No, thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye.